Hey, I'm TV and Movie Guy on Instagram, and I'll be reviewing all of the MCU leading up to the new movie Deadpool and Wolverine in July. I hope I'll be able to make all the reviews before then, but we'll see. I'll be watching the MCU in release order so that anyone that hasn't watched before can watch along, and I won't be talking about movies or shows until I get to them. I'll only discuss the shows or movies. Up to that point, I'll be reviewing them assuming that you're either very familiar with the movie or had just watched it. I won't be going scene by scene, basically retelling the show or movie. At that point, just go and watch it. I have not read any of the comics, so all my knowledge is based on what's on the screen. I'll be reviewing Captain America: The First Avenger today, and if you don't want to be spoiled, stop now and come back later. And well, be sure to watch it if you come back later. Otherwise, you're still going to be spoiled. So I didn't see anybody between now when I dropped between doing this video and by the time I dropped the Thor review. So the review I couldn't remember was actually Wars Return of the Jedi, and it was Luke talking to the Force ghost of Obi-Wan Kenobi and basically just saying, so what I told you was true from a certain point of view. And he's like, a certain point of view? So I'm sure people knew that, just nobody watches my videos, so that's a good sign. Alright, and with that, allons-y. So with Captain America: The First Avenger, the overall review I have for it is a grounded story, but with the fantastical elements that make the Marvel Universe. And if I had to explain it to you like you were 5, Steve Rogers wants to join the army to do his part, but he's ineligible. A doctor thinks he is perfect for the super soldier program and gets him into the army. And then Steve is chosen for the super soldier. Steve then becomes Captain America through that process. Schmidt, or Red Skull, is on the side of the Nazis in a division called Hydra. And that same doctor that chose Steve worked on Schmidt for the original super soldier, but there were some side effects. With Schmidt's abilities, he was able to hunt down the Tesseract that powers weapons that decimate the Allies in the war, and then capturing Steve's friend in the process. Steve saves his friend, destroys all the weapons, plants of Hydra, and Red Skull has one last attack planned with bombs for all the big cities in the U.S. Steve runs him down, and they fight. Okay, and then the tier. I've got 5 tiers. You can call them stars. I don't care. First being great, second tier good, third okay, fourth I don't like it, and last is bad. For Captain America: The First Avenger, it's good. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I'll go into it just through all the things I'll discuss, but it's good. The first time I saw it, I thought it was good, but each time I've seen it since, it just seems to get better each time I watch it. Not enough to like bump it to the next tier, but I just find that it keeps awing me when I watch it. It's a good rewatchable movie for sure. It also is probably one of the more emotional ones, I would say. I hardly ever cry at anything, but if I did, this movie would likely make me shed a couple. Thor's love story compared to this movie is why that one seems a little forced, because this one will actually get you. Like, it's a decent romance plot line. Making an edit here. I guess I can do that later, but whatever. Yeah, so this movie is a good war movie or period piece. It had all the elements that you would see from that genre in other normal movies that are based on true stories. You'll see the MCU doing that, where they go into certain genres of certain movies. And I think they started with this one, so the other ones don't really kind of remind you of anything other than just like a superhero movie. They're just superhero movies. Nothing apart from that, really. Thor, I guess you could say, is somewhat Shakespearean, but not done as well as this movie, I think. But yeah, I found it funny at the start of the movie that there are all those old people and that guy that ends up beating up Steve in the alley. All those old people and that guy are in the movie theater to watch cartoons. Maybe cartoons were something that people went to watch no matter what age they were back then, but I don't know. I just found it funny. Uh, yeah, and then the actors they got again for this movie, Hugo Weaving, just big into the fantasy kind of worlds. So you got him in The Matrix, The Lord of the Rings, and now he's in the MCU. You've got Tommy Lee Jones and Stanley Tucci also joining the cast. Like, oh wow, it's just amazing who they're able to get. And then in this movie, you got to see a young Howard Stark. Yeah, Tony Stark's dad, and how he was involved with SSR, Strategic Scientific Reserve, which eventually like turned into Shield. So they're interchangeable. They're the same thing. A lot of similarities between Howard and Tony. With the he's a ladies' man. The way they just delve themselves into their technology, and then also their personality, just loud. And I enjoyed the back and forth on the lines about the fondue and Steve trying to guilt Peggy for fondueing with Howard. Just, I don't know. The limited lines that Stark had, he showed his range, and delivered in what he needed to. Like, he was the serious person when he needed to be in the experiments, and then the ladies' man when he needed to be, and just deadpan when it was just a normal conversation. I wouldn't say deadpan, because if it's a normal conversation, yeah. Red Skull, I think it's a good villain. Not really overpowered or defeated by Steve, but rather defeated by the power he sought out, the Tesseract. I would say they were pretty even in their fighting ability, and no clear advantage for either. I think Red Skull was good, he was given a good story. He was on his own path, separate from the hero, and their paths needed to cross, only because Captain America wanted to cross him. It's not like Red Skull was like, I'm going to get you, Captain America, or anything like that. Yeah, Red Skull, he wasn't trying to take the fight to Captain America. He was on his own mission, trying to fulfill his own plan. Some villains just get too tied up into the hero's story and make it too personal, and like, yeah. MCU's guilty of that, but this one, I thought it was a good change of pace. So sometimes that's good, where the story is tied in, but it can get old after a while, and it just depends on how it's done, I guess, movie by movie. The Hydra logo kind of bothered me, and someone else had pointed this out that I had listened to, and I thought it was a good point. Hydra's depicted with multiple heads in mythology, but in this logo, it's just a skull and octopus tentacles, so I don't know how you get Hydra from that, but oh well. Then, yeah, so Tommy Lee Jones' character, Colonel Phillips, I thought he was a great character. Each scene of Colonel Phillips, Tommy Lee Jones played it perfectly. Any scenes he was in, the eyes just gravitated toward him. They gave him a lot of good lines, too, and he delivered. So it was a great casting and a great performance from Tommy Lee Jones. And then Peggy Carter, an agent. From her first scene punching out one of the recruits to her dramatic final scene calling out over the radio to Steve, she was cool in her scenes, commanded your attention without fail. This is a perfect character, I think. Like, wasn't outdone, not blatant and obvious what she was doing. She was just her, and it worked. The after credits scene in this movie I didn't like, just because, and I guess going forward I'm going to call these stingers rather than after credits scenes. It's just shorter, but I could use either or. Just depends on what comes to mind when I'm talking about it at the time. So stinger or after credit scene. Yeah, I didn't like this one. This one was mostly just a trailer for the Avengers. Hero is a little ticked off dude that don't get no credit. In this movie, I'm gonna say it's Peggy Carter. Some people might think it's Dr. Erskine because he was the one that got Steve into the army, got him into the super soldier program, and but but Steve was going to just follow orders and perform like the monkey on the unicycle he was drawing if it wasn't for Peggy pushing him. Peggy was also the motivation in making sure that his head didn't become too big and forget why he was where he was, because like he was starting to become too big for his britches. Uh, and yeah, just the kiss with the one officer, and then Peggy saw that, and so that just brought him back down to earth. And he's like, okay, what am I doing? Come on, get back on track. So yeah, Peggy should get the credit for Captain America in this movie. Best and worst. Uh, Maybe I shouldn't always have something for best and worst if nothing really stands out to me. I wouldn't want to force anything to find something bad or nitpick. I don't know. So I'll just say whatever I think warranted a best or a worst. So there's not always going to be one for each of these. But so for the best scene I thought has to go to Peggy and Steve. Or they're talking to each other over the radio, and he's crashing into the ice and ocean. So it was just, that scene was so heartbreaking, and the performances were amazing. Just, it really drew you in, and that's what I was talking about, where I don't cry, but if I did, like that scene would definitely probably yank a couple from me. The best line was toward the end, and Cap's in Times Square, and Director Fury's like, Cap, are you all right? Or are you going to be okay? And he's like, yeah, I had a date. Like that. Yeah. Again, the romance really worked in this one for that line to land. Another good line I thought was Tommy Lee Jones. So toward the end when they're fighting Hydra, and the Hydra soldier says, cut off one head, and then they kill him. And Tommy Lee Jones goes, let's go find two more. And then best joke, Tommy Lee Jones had a lot of them. So, I'm not kissing you. He's still skinny. He's making me cry. I bought you dinner. And then they're giving the steak to Arnim Zola. What's in it? Cow? Just, he had a lot of the good lines, and he killed each and every single one of them. And then one of the weaker lines I thought was toward the start of the movie, don't do anything stupid. How could I? You're taking all the stupid with you. I mean, toward the start of the movie, you don't really know the characters all that well. I mean, you know they're friends, but it's Steve and Bucky, but I don't know. Just not the best line. All right, what happened to the bat in this one? So Red Skull, it looked like the Tesseract was doing something similar to what the Bifrost was doing when it took Red Skull, and it just seemed like it transported him. So like the Bifrost from Thor, it seemed like it just transported him somewhere. It didn't seem like he was decimated like anybody shot with the guns, and he wasn't shot with a gun. He was holding the Tesseract, and it kind of opened up the cosmos. You saw the galaxy, the universe, and then, like I said, it just kind of went off with the Bifrost. We so there was a loose thread from Thor, and it was the stinger at the end of that movie, where they open a briefcase and there's a blue cube in there. We found out what that was. Called the Tesseract, and uh, so it's actually from Asgard, because at the start of the movie, uh, Red Skull or Schmidt is saying it was the jewel of Odin's treasure room. So Odin had this Bifrost and he left it on Earth. So that blue cube is the Tesseract, and now Shield has it, and Selvig's looking at it, but then Loki and Selvig are somehow connected, so it might fall into wrong hands. We'll see. Yeah, the Tesseract just seems to be like unlimited power based on what Schmidt said. It's unlimited power. Unlimited power. Another Star Wars reference. I think that's the Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, I think it's the third one. 6th movie overall. Episode number 3, though. 3rd prequel. A lot of ways to refer to that movie. And then, yeah, that was the only loose thread from the previous movies to kind of become tied up. For cameos in this one, Stan Lee was in it, and it was a bad cameo. It was a scene all of its own. It really had nothing to do with the main storyline. They were at a medal ceremony, and they say Steve Rogers. Steve Rogers doesn't come out, but it's like the USO guy that was helping him get ready for the shows. And then Stan Lee's like, I thought he'd be taller. And that's the end of the scene. It just felt very out of place. All right. Referenceable. I don't think I really reference anything from this movie. I thought this segment would have something like every single movie, but I don't know. I guess I'll only bring it up if there is something I actually reference from the movie, and rather than just be like, segment referenceable, and then I'm like, there was nothing I really referenced from this movie. So I'll just bring it up if there is actually something I reference from it generally. Q&A, I didn't see any from the comments or an email, so again, you can email any questions or comments to tvandmovieguyproductions@gmail.com. I'll put that email in the description of the video too, just so you know what it looks like and know how to spell it. And yeah, I didn't see. You can also put questions or comments in the comments section, obviously. Imagine that. Well, yeah, that's all I had for this movie. Yep, feel free to ask questions, leave comments. I'm on Instagram at tvandmovieguy, where I review TV shows and movies in a shorter version, but more than just for the MCU. I'm only doing these types of reviews for the MCU right now, but still watching other stuff in the meantime. Just a reminder, I've never worked on any engagement or counted any votes or ballots for any award shows. The opinions are my own and do not reflect that of my employers. For the next viewing of the MCU, I'll be watching the Avengers. Well, see ya.